everyone, welcome to my weekly coffee and card session. We are Monday the something of May. I've got no idea what day of the week it is, no idea what day of the month it is, let alone what day of the week it is. So I use a time hop app on my phone, and this weekend a message popped up to say that it's exactly a year since I made these three cards. Now these three cards are three cards that I put together with products from my pre-order for last year's annual catalogue launch. Can you believe that? Doesn't feel like a year ago. These three cards have been put together with the About a Man stamp set, which is carrying over to the annual catalogue, but I have used some items that will be retiring, such as this stamp here, which comes from Perennial Birthday. So I thought it would be time to freshen them up a bit. Hi to everyone who's joining. So I have cased one of these cards. These cards have been really popular all over Pinterest, and I've had a lot of people message me with pictures of cards that they've made that have inspired these cards. So I'm really, really grateful for that. But it's time to freshen them up. So I've chosen to case this one and a little bit of this one. So I'm going to put these to one side. The card that we're going to make today, so it's mainly based on this one, and it looks something like this. So this stamp here is the Beautiful Moments stamp set, which is in the January to June mini catalogue, and it is carrying over to the main annual catalogue at the start of June, which is really exciting. I love this stamp set. I think it's beautiful, and it's great that we've got a male and a female now. Hi everyone, I'm just reading your comments. Yeah, a few people joining on time. Well done, I'm very impressed. So I have kept it very, very simple still, but just added in a few new little techniques and obviously some new product. So I'm going to put this one to one side because as much as we love it, he's retired now, so bye. Okay, so to get cracking, I have used a C6 card base, which has been cut from Sahara sand. So we will cut this now. This is, I've done this as a tent fold rather than a landscape fold. So I'm cutting this at 10.5 centimetres, and I'm turning this round, and I'm going to score at 14.9 centimetres. So there we have our card base. So we just fold that in half, and we have our little card base. I've not done the inside of this, but I will do the inside with you whilst we are together. So for this card, we don't need much at all. I've got a Sahara sand card base that we've just cut. I have a Whisper White layer there. I'm just going to let the cat in because she's going crazy. I have a Whisper White layer that measures 10 centimetres by 14.4. And I have the same for the inside. We have a die cut piece. I've cut these with these are the stitched nested label dies, and this is part of the Bird Ballad suite in the current catalogue, and they are carrying over as well. And then I have a piece of black for my sentiment, and I need some white for my stamping. So I'm just going to grab a piece of white. I've left that on my desk, surprise, surprise. So we just need a piece of Whisper. This is my scraps box. So that's all we really need for today. So I'm just going to grab a piece of scrap that is big enough for that, that'll do. So we're going to start this card by stamping this down the side here. So I'm going to put all these pieces to one side. So I am using the Happy Birthday sentiment from the Timeless Tulips stamp set, so this one just here, and I am going to stamp that in Sahara sand. Sahara sand is the same colour that I've used for the card base. Thank you, Baz, my scraps box. Yes, it's quite handy. It's one of the double stamp cases. All I've done is I've added some DSP in there, and it holds all of them, and I've used my label maker to add what it is. So I have a white one and a basic black one, and I have a very vanilla one, and they also look quite nice on my shelf as well. Right, so to do this bit of stamping here, I have actually stamped off the edge of my card, and you'll notice that they're different shades of Sahara sand. So I'm going to show you the stamping off technique, which is really handy. So I'm going to ink up my stamp just in the same way, lots of little taps, tap tap tap, rather than pushing down into the ink pad. So to get the two-tone stamping effect, I am going to stamp onto my grid paper. It's quite straight actually, and then I'm going to stamp on my card. I'm just going to make sure this is straight. And then all I've done, so you've got a lovely tone of Sahara sand there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down repeatedly with the sentiment, both stamping on, stamping off, and adding, taking it so that each time you get a little bit of different levels of the stamping. So you get a little bit of the word, a little bit of the sentiment, and then a lot of the sentiment. So this is, you can also do this with the Stamparatus, but because I wanted not a lot of spacing between it, I've kept it quite, I've not used the Stamparatus, I'm just doing this all by freehand. Just carefully go all the way down your card. This is a great way for covering up some of the white space on your card backgrounds. So, excuse me while I'm a bit quiet, I'm concentrating a lot on this. And then the last one I'm putting on, I am putting on the whole sentiment. Okay, so we've got a little bit as we go down that we can see, but this very last sentiment here is one that we can see the whole of. So that is our layer on our card. Now the next thing that we need to do, we need to layer on or mark out roughly where this is going to go. So we want to make sure that we can see this very bottom sentiment. Okay. And then the next thing we do is we're going to, all this is done by eye, we're going to line up roughly where our people are going to go. So what we want to make sure we do is we want to make sure these lines at the bottom are clearly at the bottom, clearly underneath the banner that we're going to put on. So I'm going to use Memento to stamp this. Just take your ink pad to your stamp. Because your image is quite large, I find it easier to take your image to your stamp to your image rather than pushing it down. You can't really see where you're stamping, where you're picking up the ink. Sorry, I can't talk today. So then we're going to pop that roughly there, which actually lines up quite nicely with the happy birthday. So we take off the pink and then we're going to lay this onto our card roughly about there and just push down. You're not really going to see much of that stamping because we're going to cover it, and it doesn't matter if it overhangs here either because the pink banner that we're using is going to cover all of that. So then whilst we're there we can also stamp that sentiment, sorry, we can also stamp the girls onto our scrap of white that we've picked up from the scrap box. And this one, this will give this time to dry as well before we start colouring. So there is a lovely stamped image. Okay, so we'll leave that to dry and then we're going to go back to this one here. So now what we can do is we can actually pop this onto our card front. So this is our layer for the front, and I'm just using a bit of Tombow to stick this on. This is exactly 1/2 centimetre smaller than the card front. So what that means is we get a nice even border of the card base, showing around all the edges. So there we have that piece. And now we can take our banner and we can pop this, we can lay this on where we want it to go. So I'm going to pop that roughly about there, so it actually covers up most of our background stamping, but that's what we want. So now I'm going to add a few dimensionals to stick this on. This will give our card just a little bit of depth, which is always nice. And then we can pop that on roughly about there. So you've got a little bit of the feet showing. Okay, so there we have, we're starting to layer up our card. So what we can do now, we can pop the card base to one side, and now we can colour in our lady. So I have a selection of Stampin' blends, which I'm just going to grab out of my pot. So these are all my Stampin' blends. I have gone with some interesting colours. I've gone with some So Saffron, which is what I've coloured the little girl's hair in with. I've gone for some Night of Navy, which is what I've tried to create a denim look for her dress. We have some Mint Macaron, which is my absolute favourite colour, and that is for the little girl's dress. We have some browns. I've used bronze, dark crumb cake and light soft suede. That's for the lady's hair. We have an ivory, which is for the skin tone, and then we have a colour lifter. So all I'm going to do now is colour in my people. So to start with, I'm going to colour in the skin, and I'm just lightly adding this ivory, and I'm not necessarily colouring right up to the edge. Much like this stamp is pencil lines, I want to create a similar sort of effect with the unfinished look as such with my colouring. So I've added in some ivory there, and then I tend to start with the lighter colours and build my colour up. So the next lightest colour is the yellow, which is for the young girl's hair. She actually has a bow in her hair, so I'm carefully going to just colour around that. And for this, I'm using the fine end of the blend. And then to add in some tone, I'm going in with a darker shade. I'm just picking up some of those pencil lines. Okay. And then we're going to go in with some Mint Macaron. So I'm using the lightest shade first. So we'll colour in that hairband there, just so that it matches her lovely dress. And then I'm going to use the thicker end. So I'm just going to put most of this colour in the centre of her dress. And then I'm going to use the darker one to again just go around some of those pencil lines and pick up some of that shading, or where you think the shading will be. Okay, so that looks quite harsh. What we'll do is we'll use the colour lifter, and I'm going to just go over those darker areas to blend in the shading. Okay, so when that dries, that will pick it up really nicely, so you can just see that. I'll lift it up to the camera for you. And then we'll move over to the lady and we will colour in her hair. Hi Janine, thank you so much for joining. There's lots of people popping on and off today. It's quite nice actually, lots of people to say hi to. So with this one, I'm actually going to do the opposite, and I'm going to start with the dark. So this is the bronze. And I'd say this is the truest brown that we have in the collection. So I've gone around the edge, and I'm just going to add in a little bit of extra colour. So that's the soft suede, and then this is the crumb cake. So just trying to show that there's different tones in her hair. And then using the colour lifter again, I'm just going to go in and pick up some of that colour. Okay. And then if you're not happy with how it now looks. You can just add in a little bit more colour and just keep building until you are happy. Hi Jenny, thank you so much for popping on. I hope you're okay. You've got a busy day of lives today. So for her dress, I'm going to use the darker one first. And this is just different techniques that I use when I'm doing colouring. So I'm picking up those lovely shading lines. And then I'm going to go down with the lighter one. So this is Night of Navy in the lighter shade. And all I'm doing is I am leaving some white space. Okay, so this is roughly where I think the colour will fall and the light will be there. And then using a different colour, just a lighter shade of balmy blue. This is another one of our colours. And then using the colour lifter, I'm going to go over all of it. And this creates a bit of a distressed look, I find, with the Night of Navy shades, which is a great way of creating a denim feel, really. And just go over that until you're happy. So there we have our coloured in image, and I'm quite happy with that actually. So now I'll just pop all my blends to one side and we're going to cut this out. So to get the look that we've got here, where you can see the stamping underneath, I'm going to cut all of that off. So I'm going to cut into my image and then just leave a little white border around the edge of our stamping. I'm going to cut off all this white space. And this is another way of just highlighting some detail on your stamps and making them feel more, make them look like they've got a bit more texture. So we're going to cut off those pencil lines. Just keep moving your card, keep your scissors as stable as possible. That's it. Chop that bit off. This stamp also looks really lovely when it's been watercoloured. They're not everybody's cup of tea, but me personally, I really like using them. They're great for making personal cards, for using in mini albums, or just for a bit of mindful colouring, which is always a nice escape. So I'm just leaving that little white border around our characters. It's a nice bit of therapy as well, cutting out. So be sure not to cut her fringe off. I think this is the second time I've used this stamp set on a Facebook Live recently, but I've not used this image yet. I like this one. Provokes lots of different thoughts and it's great for using for different things. Okay, nearly there. Okay, so there we have our fussy cut ladies. And then now what we're going to do, we'll bring our card back in. We're going to attach this to our card so that it matches it lines up with the image that we've already stamped underneath. Okay, so you've got that little bit of monochrome ground there, and then we'll stick this on. So I'm going to use some Tombow for this. Now we know that the lady, almost all of her is going to be stuck to that pink label there, and some of the little girl on the edge. That's where I'm going to stick my glue. So we're going to put some glue here for the lady, and then we can put some on the arm, and then some just down the edge. Okay, so then now we'll line this up just like so, and just push down really gently because we don't want to move that. Okay, oh, she's just moved. So once you are happy with where that has been stuck, you can just leave that to one side. So we are going to, I'm not going to stick the feet down just because I don't think you need to. So there we have that bit there. And then now we are going to do our little banner. You don't have to put this on. You could add just a simple happy birthday, but I wanted something a little bit more than that. This sentiment I've used is from the Strong and Beautiful stamp set, which is also carrying over. Excellent. And it's got some really lovely sentiments in it. I've used it for all different things. It's great for Mother's Day, great for sending out to team members that are doing amazing things, or people that are maybe struggling with different things, and it's great to let them know that you're thinking of them. So I have used You Have What It Takes to Be Unstoppable, and I couldn't be more proud. I think that's really sweet. So we'll put our stamp set to one side, and we're going to do some embossing. So we need our embossing buddy, we need our heat tool, and we need some Versamark, which is a sticky stamp, and I have my embossing powder just here. So to start with, I've got a scrap of basic black here, and I'm going to lightly run my embossing buddy across our cardstock. It just picks up all the static that might be on that card, so that we get a really clear image when we stamp. Excuse my Versamark, it's been used in a class, and sometimes things get a bit mucky. So all we're doing is we're making sure we've got a lot of Versamark on that image, on that sentiment, and we're going to push down. With Versamark and embossing, it's really important not to jiggle your stamp around when you push down, because you want it to be really clear. So then now we've stamped using our embossing powder, using our Versamark, we can dip it into our embossing powder. So this is Whisper White embossing powder. There's a couple of tubs that I've emptied just into a Tupperware container. Because they come in small pots, I find that it can get quite messy, whereas this way you just have a little bit more control, and anything that makes less mess is always popular in my craft room. So now what we've done is that Versamark has picked up that embossing powder, and you can see that it's quite, you can see that powder on there. So you could just brush that off if you were to get something on it. So we're going to use the heat tool to set it. So I'm just going to turn this on, and then so take a moment to heat up, and you'll see it start to change. So that's just starting to go now, and you can see it will get brighter and it will look more solid. Okay. So that's our embossed sentiment done. So you can see that's now quite bright, and if we move our finger across it, it doesn't smudge. So I'm going to trim around this. You could add this to your card as a banner, but I didn't necessarily want to lose the label that we've got, the shape of the label. So I'm sure you can guess what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a bit of fussy cutting, and I'm just going to fussy cut around the edge this lovely sentiment. That's it. Again, I'm just moving my cardstock as opposed to my scissors, and I'm just following the edge of that sentiment for you. Okay. Let's just keep going. Follow it all the way around. We're nearly there. Like I said, you don't necessarily need to add this bit because you've got the happy birthday already stamped. But I wanted to add that little bit of black and white monochrome to my card. So then all we're going to do is we're going to add this up here, and I'm going to stick this with, I'm going to put a little dimensional just there. So just bring those back in. That's it. Just line that up. So I'm lining that up so that we can still see some of the label. And it doesn't necessarily matter if you cover up some of your stamping. Okay, so there we have our finished card front. Now, for the inside of our card, all I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more of our Sahara sand stamping that we've done, but I'm going to do that down this side, so something a little bit different. So what we're going to do to create the different tones, to start with, I'm going to start in the middle this time, and I'm going to stamp Happy Birthday like so, and then we're not going to add any more ink. We are going to just simply stamp with that second generation. Okay, so to stamp with that with that other tone without stamping on your card first, we're just going to stamp on our grid paper and then stamp on. Okay, so we'll just keep going until we're happy with what we've got. Like so. Just remember to stamp off, I do forget. And then to finish, we'll just have one down here in full. So there we have our finished bit of stamping, repetitive stamping I suppose you could call it, and this is what we're going to add inside our card. This piece here is the same size as the piece on the front, and that's 10 centimetres by 14.4 centimetres. So we'll just stick that in with a bit of Tombow. Okay, and there we have our finished insert. So for those of you that weren't here in the beginning, I showed 3 cards that I have made previously. I'm trying to find the other card now. Where is it gone? Here it is. So these are 3 cards that I made previously last year, which were using the About a Good Man stamp set. This particular sentiment is retiring. It's from the Perennial Birthday set. So what I wanted to do was case it. For those that don't know, case is to copy and selectively edit. So I have copied and selectively edited this card here using the new Beautiful Moments stamp set that is in the January to June mini catalogue and will be carrying over to the annual. So all I've done is I've done a little bit of repetitive stamping down the side. You saw me towards the end doing that inside, and I've used Sahara sand for that, and I've just stamped off and used first and second generation ink. I've used a nesting label die for this background, so it follows the same theme. And then this image is from the Beautiful Moments stamp set, which I've stamped onto the card, the layer on the bottom, and then I've stamped it again on some scrap and then stuck it onto this particular, onto the card front, so that you get that lovely two-tone stamping. And then the sentiment here has been heat embossed with white embossing powder on black cardstock and fussy cut around. So this is the one I made before the live, and this is the one that I've done with you on today's video. So that's it from me today. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined in. It's been lovely to see you all, or to speak to you all. I hope you enjoyed watching me make these cards. Products are available on my online store at the moment. Shipping is continuing just slightly slower than normal, but things are still getting through. This particular stamp set here, the Perennial Birthday one, is in the retiring list, so you can still purchase that at the moment. But once stocks have gone, it's gone. If you are going to place an order, please remember to use the Hostess Code. You'll find information about that at the top of this post. And I look forward to crafting with you again on Wednesday. Join me for a couple of different techniques, maybe a card and a fancy fold, because you all enjoyed that so much last week. So have a great week, stay safe, stay indoors, and I will see you all soon. Thanks then, bye.